I hope this episode rings true for some of you. I know this problem has haunted me for a long time. There's this amazing documentary called The Universal Mind of Bill Evans. In it, master pianist and composer Bill Evans is interviewed by his brother and talks at length about his creative process and the nature of jazz, improvisation, and his particular type of music. It was recorded in the 60s, but it still absolutely holds true today. I highly suggest checking it out for yourself if you haven't done so already. It's an absolute gem of a resource for improvisers, and it's on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description. One of the things that Evans stresses throughout is really knowing and understanding what you play. I see a lot of people that come to me, for instance, for advice, that they tend to approximate the product rather than attacking it in a realistic, true way at any elementary level, regardless of how elementary. But it must be entirely true and entirely real and entirely accurate. They would rather approximate the entire problem than take a small part of it and be real and true about it. His brother responds by saying that there's a joy in the adventure and the discovery aspect of playing. Bill responds, I think you need to have a certain adventurous spirit, but let's say over a long period of time, you have to be aware of what is really accurate and what is not. And your adventures, you have to know when you succeed and when you don't succeed. When I first saw this, I felt a little at odds. I considered myself and took pride in being a risk taker when it comes to my playing. So this video is about that adventurous spirit that permeates the improviser's mind, that drives us to new sounds and new places, and how we might, as Evans put it, be entirely true and entirely accurate with that new information we discover on our musical journey. The way that I usually phrase this discussion is by using the concept of novelty. So, what is novelty? Novelty describes something that is new or unique, and we take notice of it because of its newness and uniqueness to us. In jazz terms, it's a line or phrase or a gesture that gets your ears to perk up. That sudden feeling of, oh, what was that? We sometimes get when we're listening to something or someone we've never heard before. In my own experience, novelty or the unexpected in a live setting usually gets the audience involved. It's exciting to surprise someone or to get their attention with a new line or something being used in an unexpected way. Truth is, we're always looking for something that catches our ear. In our practice, what we listen to or transcribe can be driven by wanting to have a better understanding of what we're hearing and how it was done. I've gone down months-long rabbit holes trying to break down a single technique or tonality. An integral part of the learning process is to demystify music that was once confusing or felt obscure. There is a problem with novelty when we begin to internalize the idea. It no longer has that fresh car smell, if you will. I want to talk future about this internalization process, but needless to say, if you've been playing your instrument for any amount of time, you've experienced this. Something that was once fresh, now feeling stale. The reason you may have learned the concept in the first place is because it surprised you or caught you off guard, or sounded new. Now, after playing it for weeks or months or years, it no longer has that feeling associated with it. This certainly led to problems for me. In my early playing career, because I was always aiming for the new and exciting, I would almost actively avoid some of the things I was practicing. To me, it felt like embodying the adventurous spirit. But in reality, it was more like a never-ending spiral of learning something, then turning around and never using it again, and feeling like I was never on solid footing with what I played. A clear example of this in my career is when I started playing out a lot more in college, the gigs that I was getting weren't strictly what I was studying, that is to say jazz. I started playing a lot of funk and pop, where I discovered the absolute essentialness of the pentatonic scale. So I got out the Jerry Bergonzi Inside Improvisation series, and I was absolutely engrossed in my study of pentatonics and all the different ways that they could be used. That series is great and excels at getting you to play the material in every way that Bergonzi can think of to play it. Needless to say, I gained a mastery over the pentatonic scale. But I began to lose interest in it fairly quickly after this. I knew the scale and the way it sounded in every direction and could apply it in many situations, but it had lost its sheen. Part of this was that I hadn't completely found my voice yet, but a big issue here was the novelty of the sound had worn off and it felt stale. I wanted to be innovative. I wanted to be exciting, and the pentatonic scale was no longer innovative or exciting. Instead, I went for things that I only vaguely understood, and my playing sounded unfocused and wandering, and I would only get more and more frustrated. I was learning the right elements and techniques, but I was judging myself into oblivion every time I used one. So let's talk about maybe some ways in how to fix this issue. How do we get over this mental hurdle when we're playing? Well, just like the things we label as novel, I think the way out here is largely personal and unique to individuals. For some, just identifying the problem might be enough. It's certainly a first step for everybody. The key for me was thinking of my improvisations as a story being told, but not like you may have discussed before concerning story arc or returning themes. Think of yourself as a storyteller, telling your tale to an audience. All of the knowledge needed to tell the story is already in you, and your job as an improviser is to play with and express that information to the world. You can tinker, you can twist your story, you could say it in reverse order if you wanted to. But what you can't do is excuse yourself for hours to do research about something you want to include. It's too late for that. This, at least for me, kind of reversed engineered the problem, reminding myself that the things I've learned are great, and my job in the moment is to interpret and deliver those things to your ear. You're not going to have the same feeling you do as a listener as you do as a player. You might surprise others with your choices, but you're not really going to be able to surprise yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you should meticulously plan out every solo. Quite the opposite, in fact. What I am saying is that you can't let the little voice in your head constantly telling you, this is lame, or this is boring, get the best of you. Another way to think about it, when you get to a certain point in your playing and writing, everything you do will feel like just something. Oh, that's just the pentatonic melody. That's just a diminished scale line. That's just chordal triads and second inversion, ascending and minor thirds. Once you internalize something, that's how it feels. You are building your solo from what you already know. Jerry Bergonzi once said to me that he's not necessarily thinking about the techniques he's using as he's improvising, but if you stopped him mid-solo and asked, what was that? He would be able to tell you. This is being real and accurate with your music, instead of approximating something you half understand. So, for this week's exercise, I'm going to ask you to listen for that judging voice in your head. Before we get started, please consider liking and subbing and asking questions below in the comment section. If you like what you saw and you found it useful, please take a moment to let others know. It really helps this channel get discovered by new musicians. Also, I get a ton of motivation and inspiration from you all in the comments or on Instagram. So if you have a question or an idea for a video, please leave it. I read everything that you guys write, and I will consider it for an upcoming video. Okay, so because this topic is such a mental game, it's going to be hard for me to demonstrate our exercise. Here's what I want you to try. First, you're going to pick a tune or an improvisation exercise that you're already fairly comfortable with. I want you to commit to the ideas that we've talked about. Really embody the idea of playing true and accurate. You'll probably have to play more simply, using sounds and techniques that you already own and understand. And be sure to record yourself when you do this. What you're going to be looking out for when you play is that judging voice in your head, constantly evaluating what you're doing. Notice when it comes up. Notice how you react to it. Notice how much power that voice might have over you. Take your time with this. Eventually, you'll want to work on divesting in that voice. But for now, if you're new to this, work on only noticing it. Once you're done, hit save on the recording and don't come back to it for a while. Usually a week is enough time for me. When you do sit down with your recording, change your mental relationship to it. Imagine somebody else is playing on the recording. Approach it without the baggage of something that you've played and you have a connection to, and look at it objectively. The hope is that the self-judging we all do so much of falls away a little bit. This exercise also works in reverse, by the way. Listen to one of your favorite players as if you played that solo. It can be a really eye-opening experience in terms of how critical we are of ourselves. So, that's it for this week. I really hope that this discussion and exercise helps you in your improvisation journey. Again, please leave a comment below about what you want to hear about next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.